Hi and welcome to another 10x leadership video. This week I'm going to talk about a really critical part of being a leader, which is making sure you understand the problem before you try and fix it. Which is why this week's title is Don't Be a Kangaroo Leader, How to Spot the Real Problem Before It's Too Late. I'll explain all after the break. So, as I say, this week's video is all about spotting the real problem before it's too late. And what I'm going to do is talk you through what a kangaroo leader is, at least in my mind, the problems of that approach, what you can do about it, and how you can really understand what the problem is before you go off and fix it. So let's get into it. So imagine for a minute that you get, as a leader, somebody gets some feedback saying their team's productivity is low. Kangaroo leaders are ones that will immediately jump to a solution, and before you know it, as quick as they've been told there's a problem, they've got an answer, they've got a problem, they've got the solution, and they're implementing it. And the problem with that, of course, is that first of all, they don't understand the problem. They can't do. They haven't spent any time exploring it. The second is it wastes a load of time and resource, because what they're going to do is they're going to go off and fix the wrong problem. It frustrates the team because, again, the problem that they're trying to fix isn't the right one. It also misses opportunities. So fixing the real problem will give loads of benefits, and we'll cover those later on. But again, they miss those because they just hop straight to the solution. And as if that's not enough, it's also short-term thinking. So what they're doing is they're focused on, the immediate problem all the time. They're just sticking a plaster over it. They're spending more time being busy than they are being effective. The sorts of people that usually do this as well are autocratic leaders. So they just come to a solution themselves. They will just say, okay, so we've got a problem. This is what I want you to do. No discussion, no debate, just get on with it. Typical of autocratic leaders. And the other thing is, they're usually people who are focused on the detail. They're not thinking of the strategy, the bigger picture. They're just looking at the detail. They're just looking in the short term. And if they only ever do that, they're never going to fix, the underlying problem. So my advice to you is, do not be a kangaroo leader. Don't display those sorts of behaviours. So just to sort of illustrate that a slightly different way, the common mistake is that kangaroo leaders in particular react to the symptoms, and they don't dig any deeper and look for the root cause. And the other thing that they do typically is that they rely on assumptions and, I suppose, their own confident answers without gathering any data. And both of those things just lead to repeated failures. And then, imagine working for somebody who keeps jumping to solutions and they keep being the wrong thing. And the thing that's causing the problem is still there and is still causing a problem. It wouldn't take long for you to feel like, that person doesn't know what they're doing and you don't trust them and you really don't want to be in the team. So, there are some really deep-seated problems with that sort of approach. And if I just give you an example, so a leader might think that low team productivity is due to laziness in their team, especially the sort of arrogant autocratic leaders who think they're better than everyone else. And so because of that, they implement stricter deadlines, more check-in, they're checking up on people more often. But actually, if they bothered to dig down into it, the real problem could be that the team's overwhelmed with too many projects, lack of prioritisation, and poor leadership. And all of that is leading to burnout of the team, and that's what's creating or causing the low productivity. So not the symptom that the leader thought that they could see at all. Something, much more, much deeper, much more important, and something that, they would only have found out about that had they bothered to dig into what the problem was. So that's what we don't want to do. But, how do we identify what the real problem is? Well, there are a number of things that you can do to try and work out what the real problem is. So the first, lots of these, of course, are opposite to the sort of kangaroo leader who just hops to a solution. The first one is collecting data and feedback. So, whatever your problem is, go and find some data about it if you can do so. So, that might be speaking to people. It might be looking at performance metrics. It might be, if it's to do with employee satisfaction, for example, employee surveys. You might have those. You might have customer feedback. Or you might just go and observe what's going on and see for yourself what the problem is. But all of that is about collecting data and evidence. Doesn't have to take long, but it's a much better thing to do than just jump into a solution. The second bit is involving your team. You might have heard me say before, but I believe that teams belong to everyone. They don't belong to the leader. Everyone's invested in those teams. So, the people in a given team that is having a problem, they want the problems to go away as well. They want the issues to be fixed because it's in their interest as much as it is the leaders and anyone else's. So involve the team. Do team problem identification. You can do things like back to the floor, and I'll probably do a video on this another time, but back to the floor is basically going and sitting with people, understanding what the process is and the activity is, looking for bottlenecks and other things that are causing problems. So again, I suppose it's linked to that first one. It's direct observation. And the thing is that most teams know what the problems are. Most employees know what the problems are, and often they've got the solutions as well. All that needs to happen is somebody needs to spend some time talking to them and listening to them. The third is testing the assumptions. So again, don't just jump to solutions or conclusions, but make a note of your assumptions, because they may or may not be right, but if you write them down and you talk to people about them, you soon get to a point where your assumptions are turned into fact rather than just being assumptions. And then what you can do is you can try and work out what you think the solution is, and you can scenario test that by running through a process or activity and seeing whether making the tweaks that you think need to be made is going to fix the problem or not. And again, you need to be talking to people, involving your team, collecting data on that. It's the graphic there is a test tube because it's about experimenting really. It's about trying things and seeing what the outcome is and capturing data to see if it's made any difference. And one way of doing that is, well, in fact there's two ways there. One is you could do a pilot. So you could try and work out what a better way of doing something is, or finding a solution to something, and then implementing that on a small scale to begin with to see whether that fixes the problem. And then as you find it does, you can scale that up and apply it to the whole organisation or team or whatever it is, or whatever's appropriate. The other thing that you can do, of course, is you can survey. You can get more data about how people are feeling with the new process, new way of working, whatever the thing happens to be. And of course, all the way through this, just like any good sort of experiment or test, you could be tweaking and adjusting between rounds. So this doesn't have to be just a one-hit wonder and you've solved it. In fact, probably that's not going to be the case. But you can try something, see which bits of that are working, which bits aren't, and then you can iterate and improve on it and just keep going and going, and it will just get better and better. The other thing is about looking at the bigger picture. So, look wider. Is this something that, is being caused or just having an impact in your team? Or is it something that, is across the organisation? It could be it's something to do with the culture of the organisation. It could be to do with the policies and processes of the company or organisation. So, don't just look in your own team and think it's something that, might only be having an impact on you. And it's, if you talk to other teams, you talk to your colleagues, you might find that they're having the same problem, in which case you can come up with a collective solution to it, rather than fixing it in one place and it being a problem somewhere else. And then the last way to identify the real problem is a technique called the 5 whys. So this is a root cause analysis technique that basically is just asking why a number of times until you uncover the underlying issue. And it sounds really simple, and it is, but actually it is really, really effective. And you can either do that to yourself, you can do it with colleagues, you can talk to other people. When you're doing coaching, you can be going through this process to tease out what the problem is. So I'm just going to illustrate the 5 whys, just using the example that we talked about before. So, if you were, let's imagine you're the leader talking to perhaps a supervisor in your team, and you've noticed through the performance data that your team's productivity is low. The first question you'd be asking your colleague is, why is the team's productivity low? And the answer might be, well, the team aren't as effective as they should be. Okay, well, that's, a fairly obvious answer, but, the next question, so the second why is, why aren't they as effective as they should be? So basically, you're just taking the question, the answer to your previous question and turn it into a question again. So why aren't they as effective as they should be? Well, they're demotivated is the answer that comes back. Okay, well, why are they demotivated then? So, you're on to the third why already. Well, the answer is because they feel overwhelmed by the number of tasks they have to complete. Your fourth why then is, well, why do they feel overwhelmed? Well, there are too many simultaneous projects assigned to the team, and there are unclear priorities. So the fifth why in this example is then, well, why are there too many projects? Because if that's the root cause, you need to know why to be able to fix it. And, the answer might come back, well, to be honest, you as a leader aren't effectively prioritising the projects, and that's leading to an unrealistic workload on the team. So, this is just an illustration, of course, but sometimes you get back an answer that you may not want to hear. In this particular example, I'm suggesting it's the leader's fault for this issue. I suppose partially just to demonstrate that, it started off looking like it was a problem with the team and their, the individuals in the team. But actually, having gone through this 5 whys exercise, what the team thinks the problem is that the leader isn't doing what they should be doing. Now, regardless of what the answer is, when you've got to a point where you've got what the root cause is, you can at least then go ahead and try and tackle it. And again, involve your team in trying to work out how to do that. Whilst this is called the 5 whys, sometimes it doesn't take 5, sometimes it might take more, but typically by the time you've got to the 5th why, you've usually got down to the sort of root cause of the problem. So let me just give you a few more examples of, where it looks like there's a problem, but actually when you delve into it, it's not the thing that appears obvious. It's not the symptom. There's a deeper root cause. And as we have a look at these, just have a think about whether you're doing any of these or whether they chime with you. I mean, certainly as I was writing these and putting them in, I was using examples that I've seen, in the not too distant past. So for me, they definitely resonate. So the first one is, the belief or the symptom here is that the leader thinks there's poor team communication, and that's due to lack of meetings. And so they want to put more meetings in and communicate more. Having gone through the exercise, the root cause in this example was that meetings were unstructured and they lacked clear agendas, and that just led to more confusion. So having more meetings wouldn't solve the problem. If anything, it would just make people more confused and waste more of their time. And I think that one is fairly common in lots of companies and organisations. The second is the leader thought that they need to do more checking of their team's work to ensure quality standards. And then, when you dig into it, what you find is the team really were just resenting the micromanagement that already existed. And, their lack of performance or lack of quality sometimes was just the fact that they were irritated by the micromanagement and perhaps weren't focusing as they should be because they weren't as motivated as they should have been. And really what they wanted out of all of that was empowerment, not micromanagement. So really the complete opposite of what the leader was expecting to do, which is put more controls and processes in place to keep them on track and keep the quality standards high. Whereas what they wanted was more empowerment just to be able to get on with the work and do it to a good standard. And then the third one is that the leader thought they needed to increase salaries to retain employees. And again, I've seen this fairly recently. We've had conversations about, well, we just need to pay them more then because people are leaving. But actually, if you dig into it, often what happens is it's a lack of career development or poor culture that's made the people want to leave. And again, if we think back to how do you get to the root cause in this particular instance, that would be talking to current employees before they want to leave would be a good place to start. But if you have got people who are leaving, making sure that you do exit interviews so that you can understand the reasons, and then that will give you some clues as to what the real problem is, what the real root cause was. So getting to the root cause has some massive benefits, and I'm just going to quickly go through those with you. So in terms of benefits, the first one is about more efficiency. And when you solve the right problem, you're allocating resources to that problem more effectively, and that leads to better results with less effort. And I know it's blindingly obvious, but nevertheless, there are lots of kangaroo leaders about who don't do this at all. So don't be one of those. Focus on getting to the root cause, and not only will it be more efficient in terms of your of solving the problem, but there are lots of other benefits as well. One of those is improved morale. So I mentioned before, if you've got a kangaroo leader who keeps hopping to a solution, doesn't involve people, keeps getting it wrong, and the root cause is still there, the underlying problem is still still having an impact, then people become demotivated very quickly. Where you've got somebody who understands the people, it understands what the work is, they understand what the problems are, and they're addressing those, then that's going to lead to higher morale, higher engagement, and of course higher performance and higher output. The other thing is, of course, it's going to lead to better decisions. So leaders who are consistently identifying and solving the right problem, they get a reputation for making sound decisions. again, earning the trust and respect of the team, increasing morale, increasing efficiency, increasing performance. So, you know, there's some really positive benefits from this. And the other one is longer term successes. So often by addressing the root cause rather than tackling the thing that appears to be the immediate problem, not sticking a plaster over something, but understanding what the root cause of a problem is and fixing it, that will prevent the problem from reoccurring. And you know, that leads to sustainable success for the team and the organisation. So I think I've said in previous videos, a lot of, you know, the work that I do as a leader is about the medium and long term impacts that the team can have. Because if you just focus on the immediate all the time, you're never going to get out that space. You'll just be a load of very busy people, but you won't be particularly effective. Whereas if you're solving the underlying problems, before you know it, lots of them have been cleared out of the way. And then when you get to 3-6 months down the line, you haven't got those issues to deal with anymore. And you've got a much more solid foundation to build on, and you can keep getting better and better and better. So, in conclusion, don't be a kangaroo leader. Hopefully you've seen from what I've said in this video why that's the case. Don't just jump to solutions. Don't just work on your own. Don't think you know better than anyone else. Just don't. Instead, look at the root cause of an issue. Understand what that is and fix it, and engage your team in fixing that problem. And of course, you don't have to be the one identifying it either. It could be your team that's identifying problems, and encourage them to do so. Because the more you can get rid of them, the better it's going to be, the more you're going to reap those benefits that we looked at on the previous slide. And I think the final thing to say on this video is that, you know, remember, great leadership isn't about having all the answers. It's about asking the right questions. And in particular, the sort of why questions, they are great at getting people engaged, getting them involved, fixing the problem, reaping the benefits. So that's it for this week. I really hope you find that useful. I really hope you're going to implement that. And if you are a kangaroo leader, move away from that sort of behaviour, move into the root cause analysis type space. If you know kangaroo leaders, send this video to them. Help them see what they're doing, because sometimes, you know, we can't see what the issue is. We can't see the problems that we're creating. Yeah, send it to them. Hope you like it. Share it. Subscribe to the channel. You know, comment. Let me know how you're getting on. And I really hope this helps you become a great leader. I'm sure it will. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening. If you managed to get to this point, you're a star. And hopefully you'll come and join me on the next video. See you soon.